Tomorrow's climb it's hard. The last climb, it's a 170 kilometer stage, but the last climb is extremely steep. Some part at least, it's at 15-20%. The finish is not as hard. I think the last kilometer it flattens out a little bit. So ideal for Primož Roglič. Primož Roglič with the odds he has at plus 250. I'm going to pick him for tomorrow's stage winner.
Hi, I'm Spencer Martin, along with Johan Bruyneel, and this is Outcomes.
Outcomes is not an online gambling operator or a gambling site of any kind. We are simply here to provide information about sports betting for entertainment purposes only. It is a responsibility of all visitors to this podcast to check current local laws in their area or country before doing any gambling online. It is your responsibility to know and follow your local laws in place. Although we try best to provide accurate information on Outcomes, we cannot be held responsible for any inaccurate or incorrect information which is mentioned on this show. If you place any bets based on the conversations on Outcomes, you confirm or understand that it is possible to lose some or all monies used when betting on sports or doing any gambling. You cannot hold Outcomes responsible for any such losses. Our podcast is here to provide entertainment and should be viewed as that and nothing more. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Outcomes. We're predicting stage 4 of the Vuelta a España. I'll list off the favorites on Unibet and in Europe, and then I'll call out better prices if I see them on the big US books, FanDuel and DraftKings. We're leaving the sprint stages of Portugal behind, going to our first summit finish incredibly early, but I guess this is the trend in Grand Tours these days. 170 kilometers, 3 or 4 classified climbs with a deceptively tricky summit finish. Very difficult. We'll go through that, though, in detail later. The favorite is Primož Roglič at plus 250, Richard Carapaz plus 1100, Seb Kuss plus 1400, Mateusz Skelmoza plus 1400, Michael Woods plus 1600, Adam Yates plus 1800, Enric Mas plus 2000, Lennart van Etvelt plus 2000, João Almeida plus 3300, Giulio Ciccone plus 3300, Isaac Del Toro plus 3300. It goes on and on. We'll call them out when we need to. But Johan, you were right today about Wout van Aert. Who do you think is going to win tomorrow, and how's it going to play out?
Difficult to predict this kind of stage, in my opinion, Spencer. It's the first big difficulty, a part of the time trial, of course, when we started. But the big question mark is how good is Primož Roglič? How prepared has he come to this Vuelta? We don't know. His time trial was decent. 8 in a 12-kilometer time trial, the best of all the favorites, I would say. So that's why I'm going to pick him for the stage win tomorrow, assuming that it's going to be a battle between the GC guys. And Primož Roglič, I think, will need every single opportunity he can get to either take time or to stay with the best climbers and win in the sprint. Tomorrow's climb it's hard. The last climb, it's a 170 kilometer stage, but the last climb is extremely steep. Some part at least, it's like 15-20%. The finish is not as hard. I think the last kilometer it flattens out a little bit. So ideal for Primož Roglič. Primož Roglič with the odds he has at plus 250. I'm going to pick him for tomorrow's stage winner.
Yeah, it's hard to go against Primož Roglič on a stage like this. It's perfect for him. Plus 250 is okay. He's plus 275 on DraftKings. I mean, that the price would be the only thing I quibble with, because two things have to go right. His team has to be willing to pull the breakaway back and successfully pull it back, and then he has to win. We haven't. Sometimes I worry. He's one of my favorite riders. Sometimes I worry that I'm lagging. It's like a very common thing in professional cycling, even for pundits that are plugged in. Like when Tony Martin was at the end of his reign, everyone would pick him to win time trials, even though he wasn't really the best time trialist anymore. That's what I kind of worry about with Primož Roglič here. Like, are we thinking about 2021's Primož Roglič? But then again, this is a good route for him. But with that price, I'm gonna go shopping a little bit down the odds board. I'm gonna go Adam Yates plus 1800. I mean, I'm acknowledging Primož is better at uphill finishes than Adam Yates, but I'm viewing Adam Yates as kind of a budget version of Primož Roglič. And for that price, that's a pretty good price for a guy that we know he had a pretty good time trial and he was in good shape at the Tour. And I have to imagine UAE wants to rattle a Red Bull's cage. I wanted to say Visma there. I forgot Primož was on a new team, but they're going to want to like get up in Red Bull's space and be like, hey, we've got 4 guys that are pretty dang good here, and we can win these stages and we can take this race to you. I wouldn't even be shocked if UAE brings a break back themselves to try to win this stage. So I'm going Yates plus 1,800.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, we know at least that, if he has kept some of his form of the Tour de France, he should be okay. It's a question mark always, the both of the Yates brothers. Either they're really good or they're non-existent.
Yeah.
In the races. So we don't know that. But he did go full gas in the time trial for sure. Didn't do that bad. So especially at that price plus the 1,800, I think that's an interesting one. I think for the second choice, we have to consider a different scenario and it's perfectly possible tomorrow, that it's not a battle between the GC guys and that a breakaway makes it to the finish with good climbers. You have to get over the climbs in the middle of the stage. And so one guy that I think can win the stage tomorrow is Valentin Paré-Peintre from Decathlon AG2R. Won a stage in the Giro, didn't do the Tour de France, did a great Giro d'Italia overall. Great climber, if he has managed to recover well from the Giro and prepared properly. This is also a question mark. This is also at the beginning of the Vuelta. These are the things that we don't know. We are in the unknown as in which state of mind these riders get to the start of the Vuelta, right? It's the third Grand Tour of the year. Very few riders are there because they want to be there, and a lot of riders are there because they have to be there. In the case of Paré-Peintre, if my information is correct, he's not staying with Decathlon AG2R. I think he has signed with Soudal Quickstep. So you may have a rider that is, okay, I said, okay, I have to be here, but really I'm thinking already about next year. So maybe that he hasn't prepared 100%. I'm going to guess not. So at plus 4,000, Valentin Paré-Peintre for the win from a breakaway is my second choice.
Yeah, it's a good choice. I mean, mainly just because this is really difficult. This is the opposite of like third week of the Tour de France. All these great riders are out of it. They're going to go in the breakaway because their GC hopes are like, think about when Enric Mas and Richard Carapaz were going at it in the third week of the Tour that we just recently watched. This is the inverse of that because everyone is a potential GC contender at this point. There's almost no one out of it. You look at like Giulio Ciccone, he can't go in the breakaway. Joao Almeida can't go in. Leonard Van Etfeldt can't go in. Enric Mas can't go in. So it doesn't leave a lot of great options for breakaway riders that are good enough at climbing to hold off a peloton. Like they're going to be losing some serious time on this final climb. You look at some of the pitches, it starts off easy. The peloton's probably going to have engines left. They're going to pull back a lot of time there in the first half. Then you have like 20% for multiple kilometers. And you're going to have to be pretty light, pretty good climber to hold off the peloton on that and outclimb your breakaway companions. Paré-Peintre fits the bill, and that price is good at plus 4,000. We saw him do it at the Giro. Yeah, I was kicking myself when he won that Giro stage. I was like, well, that was kind of obvious in retrospect that a guy with that profile, with that body build would win that stage. But I'm going to go Matthew Riccatello. Also plus 4,000, similar, extremely lightweight rider, is a very good climber. The only question is, can he get in the breakaway? And, I'm not even, this is why we're picking GC riders and breakaway riders. I'm not completely sure how this stage is going to play out because you think, well, everyone's it's high energy. Everyone wants, like, people are nervous, GC contenders. They want to make sure they do a good climb. Probably someone wants to win it, whether that's Primoz, whether that's Adam Yates, whether that's, you'd say Joao Almeida, but let's be honest, Joao Almeida is not going to win this stage. This is like the worst possible climb for him. But GC riders are going to want to get out there and make their mark. Even Sepp Kuss, if he's on form, this is a good climb for him. So I don't know if a breakaway can realistically stay away, but I mean, the beauty of both of these guys we've named, Paré-Peintre and Riccatello, if let's say we wake up, the TV coverage comes on, the TV coverage isn't on yet. We look at Pro Cycling Stats and some like soft move. It's not going to be a breakaway day. Both those guys can then attack like later in the stage and win from a late forming break. So that's why I like Riccatello. I like Paré-Peintre as well. Picking breakaway riders at this point is extremely difficult because there's not many who are even going to be allowed to get away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's difficult to make a choice. So yeah, I think there's a high probability that a breakaway actually does make it. The thing is, we just don't know who's going to be in it, right, at this point, because we don't have a clear view yet of who's good and who's not good. But I would guess that, of all the favorites of GC, tomorrow is an important stage, basically, to test and see how they are compared to the others, not necessarily to win the stage, but I'm going to guess that Primoz, for example, wants to wait and see, okay, how can I hold up against all my rivals? Sepp Kuss, the same thing. So they're not going to be that worried about a breakaway, actually. And since we have a few GC contenders that have come with doubts, that's why I think that a breakaway has a decent chance, because they're not going to give full confidence to their team yet. They're going to say, okay, you know what? Let's not overdo it. Let's just see how I am compared to my rivals. Don't matter if there's a breakaway or not. So that's why I think that a breakaway has a chance tomorrow.
I mean, yeah, as you say, it's just there's no Dauphiné for the Vuelta, so we don't know about like Filippo Zana. When's the last time you saw him race? It's just there's a lot of unknowns. Where this stage could get really interesting is, let's say UAE sends Brandon McNulty. Brandon McNulty's in the move. What's going to happen behind? Well, what if Red Bull says, okay,
they can't let that go.
Okay, so
they can't let that go.
Let's say Red Bull puts like Florian Lipowitz in. And no one's pulling back Florian Lipowitz. Like, that would be absurd. And then what if UAE puts Isaac Del Toro in the move? Mm-hmm. And then, it starts to get kind of interesting. If you imagine these third, fourth, fifth GC options jumping in the move, teams can't pull everything back. You can't invest significant resources in marking Lipowitz or Del Toro. Like that's when the race and the stage gets pretty interesting, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at remember this stage 3 of last year's Vuelta, uphill finish, similarly early summit finish, not even close to a breakaway. It's like Remco Evenepoel wins from the GC group. Primoz Roglic was 4th, if you remember, not that good. Sepp Kuss loses time, but I don't know. I'm not as confident this is going to be a breakaway. Like, I think these riders just come out they're all running so hot and so ready to open up gaps on these summit finishes that it's hard for breakaways early in Grand Tours.
Well, most of them, most of them know exactly what their best numbers are and then how close they are to those best numbers. So, we from having that in mind, they kind of know, okay, I'm ready or not. And they know the values of the other riders. So, but still, there's the aspect of confidence, and I'm divided tomorrow. I think a breakaway has a chance.
Yeah, also you have to, like the scenarios I described, you have to be so confident. Like if you're Riccatello, you might even think, maybe. Or think of like Udo Brooks, probably not going in the move because he's going to say, I want to see how I climb in this GC group. Mm-hmm. I'm going to play it safe. That's where maybe you get a softer move that people are less worried about.
What we need tomorrow for a GC for a GC battle is we need several teams to agree to join forces. We're not going to see one team take control of the whole race. That's not going to happen. It needs to be 2 or 3 teams who are collaborating together to keep the breakaway within reach. And I think that's a possibility. There's potential agreements in the team cars that say, okay, let's at least make sure that we don't lose our options so early on in the race by letting a breakaway go too far.
Yeah, that could happen too if like Richard Carapaz jumps in the move. Then teams would probably say, let's work to pull this back because we don't want a repeat of what happened last year when Jumbo just threw a grenade in Quick-Step's lap and said, hey, you want to chase Sepp Kuss down? And they said, I don't think we can. And then the race was over right then. But let's go to the head-to-heads really quick. Also on the points classification, you should have bet Wout yesterday because he's minus 260 already. Probably is just going to get worse and worse from there because he's already got the lead in the points jersey.
If I'm not mistaken, he in one of the interviews I read or I saw, he did say that the points classification was a goal for him. So he's going to go for it.
Yeah, and if you can find a bet on him holding the jersey tomorrow, I would bet against that. Don't you think, Johan? Yeah. I don't see that happening. But no, for the head-to-heads, which you've been pretty good at, we had a little wobble today. We didn't see Brian Cocard 8th place coming. But Primož Roglic minus 220, Richard Carapaz plus 126.
Primož.
I would say Primož. I mean, I know we talked about it on the move with George, but I'll believe Richard Carapaz climbing well from the GC group when I see it. Adam Yates minus 146, João Almeida plus 110.
Adam Yates.
Yeah, I would set that more aggressively if I was running FanDuel. The person who set this line has never seen João Almeida.
Speaking of Carapaz, coming back on Carapaz, though, I have to say, I spoke to Victor Hugo Peña, our colleague from La Movida, and he interviewed Carapaz before the Vuelta, and he said that he was very, very, very convincing that Carapaz was going for GC, that he finished the tour in great shape, and straight away he went to training camp, altitude, and prepared 100% for the Vuelta with the intention to go for the GC. So, I mean, we have to give it to Carapaz. He's been podium on all the 3 Grand Tours already and won the Giro. So I think we still have to keep him in mind for the GC.
It's funny you say that. My personal theory is that the quality of his altitude camps are really I think that's the big difference in modern cycling. That if you're on EF, they're not building a kitchen for you, a top Sierra Nevada, so that's where you start to lose ground. But if he was at altitude after the tour, he could be good. Sepp Kuss, so Yates minus 146. Sepp Kuss minus 132. Mikel Landa minus 108. Neither were great in the opening time trial. Landa was, I would say, markedly worse, though.
Yeah. I think Sepp Kuss.
Okay. It's a little risky. I agree with you. Minus 132. It's a little risky because he doesn't start off hot on these uphill finishes.
He's not been convincing until now, that's for sure, with that performance in the time trial.
No, I mean, it's tough to know where Landa is. Speaking of tough to know things, he was good at the tour. Is he tired? I just have no idea where Mikel Landa is.
Yeah.
Enric Mas minus 180. Carlos Rodriguez plus 126.
Carlos.
Yeah, especially at that price. Matheus Schamoza minus 168. Lennart van Etvelt plus 122.
Skelmoza.
Interesting. Wait, how are they in the opening?
I think Skelmoza has prepared. I mean, Van Etvelt also. Van Etvelt has been, he was really good in San Sebastian. He's prepared, but I think Skelmoza is a bigger engine.
Yeah, so Skelmoza was 13th in that opening TT, and he's not heavy. That's pretty impressive.
But he's he is a good time trialist, though. I mean, let's not forget I don't remember if he won the time trial in the Tour of Switzerland when he won it, or if he was second or third. But
I think he won.
He's a good time trialist. Yeah, Van Etvelt doesn't seem to be a good time trialist because he did not a good time trial, and he's in great shape.
Yeah, aggressively bad time trial.
Yeah,
Skelmoza did not win the time trial. He was 6th and 3rd. That's funny.
Okay.
False memory. Yeah. But then he won that overall. That is it for the head-to-heads. I think we talked about the points. Van Aert -2. I don't know. Minus 260 seems a little aggressive, but as you said,
I think it's too late now.
If he's motivated, probably wins.
Yeah. But I think we should. I mean, yesterday was the day, the cutoff day for the green jersey, in my opinion, to bet on it.
And then there's one other kind of interesting prop here, King of the Mountains. It's really, you rarely see it like this. So Ciccone is the favorite at plus 700, Roglic plus 1100, Woods plus 1300, Luis Angel Mate, that seems aggressive, plus 1600. He's the 4th favorite.
No.
Carapaz 1600, Kuss 3000. Do you have a hunch on who's going to win this King of the Mountains?
Way too early. And it's going to be a GC guy. It's going to be GC guy unless, you have a scenario. You could have, Carapaz won it, I think 2 years ago when he crashed in the Vuelta, and then went on to win 3 stages, I think.
That was crazy. Yeah, he was flying at the end of that. Let me see. Let me check to make sure he won that, because it is tough. It's tough.
Definitely he won 3 stages and the King of the Mountains.
It's tough for crazy. Robert Stannard got second at that. I don't know if you've been following the news with him, but we don't have to talk about that here. But that's a pretty wild story. He got second behind Carapaz. But yeah, it's tough for non-GC guys because pretty much every major mountain is a summit finish at the end of the race. As we saw, I said the same thing at the Tour. Who won that KOM? Richard Carapaz, because he's good enough that he can do it. If I just look at these odds really quick, God, I might even just, if I had to put money on it right now, I'd probably go Primoz 1 and then also bet Carapaz. So plus 1,100 and plus 1,600, because there's frankly not many people who aren't GC riders who can win this. Carapaz being one of them. GC riders, it's probably the guy who wins. I think Primoz Roglic is going to win, or has the best chance to do so. So I'd probably go Roglic and Carapaz on King of the Mountains.
Yeah, those two are good. Yeah, I mean, Carapaz can win it from GC, and he can win it if he's out of GC.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really get talked about, but if you go back to that Tour, if you remember the stage out of Nice, I think that was stage 20. He missed the move, had to bridge up on the descent. If he doesn't do that, he doesn't win that jersey. I mean, that was not easy for him to do, because then the next day Pogačar took so many KOM points in the time trial that he would have overtaken him. So the guy can ride himself out of a jam really to win KOM jerseys. I think he's one of the few riders that can at this race. Johan, do you have anything else to share before we get going?
No, that's it for my part.
All right, and we'll be back tomorrow to predict stage 5.
Okay, thanks, Spencer.
All right, bye.